Slow Burn Media and Bill Huffman present this week's episode of Who Killed the Yogurt Shop 4, Part 2, with a special guest, Nick from the True Crime Garage podcast.
The news was unreal. 4 teenage girls, each shot in the head and severely burned. Their bodies left inside a local yogurt shop.
3 of the victims were students at Lanier High School.
Give us the information that will lead to the arrest and conviction of the person that murdered these girls, and we will give you $100,000 for that information.
Jennifer and Sarah Harbison, Eliza Thomas, and Amy Ayers, all killed inside a frozen yogurt shop on Anderson Lane in North Austin. 4 men were arrested, 2 of them were convicted, and years later their convictions were overturned.
The first day back to school for their classmates wasn't easy.
Austin police have chased down over 700 leads. Tonight, for the first time, they've named 3 men they want to question in the murders.
I mean, you don't ever think anybody's going to come into a yogurt place and shoot you.
I still don't know why someone would kill 4 innocent girls. They never did anything, to hurt anybody.
She always put her hair way up, and then she'd have clips and then wash her face real good at night, and I can just still see her doing it.
The Lanier School community, student body, and faculty and staff have been saddened by the tragic deaths of 4 young ladies for whom we mourn today.
The only thing that would help at the moment is Eliza coming in the door.
Now, you've been living here in Charleston for quite some time. What have you been doing?
Working, living my life. 2 of the 4 arrested were Michael James Scott, age 26, from Buda, Texas. Robert Burns Springsteen, age 26, from Charleston, West Virginia.
I mean, they died and they were so, they were our age. And, it makes you really think, tomorrow isn't promised. And, anybody here may not be here tomorrow, and it's just scary and it hurts.
They may have taken the lives of 4 girls, but they've ruined the lives of a lot of people.
It would not be prudent to risk a trial until we know the nature of the involvement of this unknown male.
Appeals Court in Austin is going to hear arguments today on the notorious yogurt shop murder case.
They're going to have their day of facing someone.
Still haunts people to this day.
If you read about it, if you heard about it, if you were touched by it, if you were affected by it, you became a victim.
Hello and welcome to episode 56 of Who Killed, a Slow Burn Media production. I'm your host, Bill Huffman, and on this week's episode is part 2 of Who Killed the Yogurt Shop 4. Luckily, I am joined this week by Nick from the True Crime Garage podcast, and we will be discussing some of the theories about who could have committed this crime after some of the convictions were overturned in last week's episode. Now, we both have read the book by Beverly Lowry, Who Killed These Girls, and we can't implore you enough that if you have not read the book, as a true crime fan, it is definitely one that you should check out. And in the theory that she puts out is also a theory that some of the police, as well as some of the authorities, believe, and that is that 2 individuals are most likely the culprits in this particular crime. Now, Nick and I go into detail about the individuals who have been thought of as possibly being the killers, and some of the theories are really interesting, and if you take a look at some of the pictures that are available online, you'll be able to see what we're talking about. And if you'd like to kind of go along with what we're talking about, you can download a map or just pull up a map of the yogurt shop layout, and it kind of details how this could have gone down if it would have been 2 perpetrators opposed to the Michael Scott and Robert Springsteen convictions. So if you guys have the time, I'm going to put those 2 interrogation videos, the audio, at the end of this episode again, just if you guys want to take another listen. And otherwise, I wanted to let you know that I will be representing my passion case, Who Killed and Who Killed Amy Mahalovic, at this year's CrimeCon 2020 in Orlando. And that is May 1st through the 3rd. And I can't implore you enough to go to CrimeCon if you are a true crime fan, because it is really an experience unlike anything you've ever had in your life. You get up close and personal with all the true crime personalities. Dateline, 48 Hours, presentations are second to none. And if you guys want to save on your ticket, you can use my ticket promo code, which is Amy2020. So again, that is for CrimeCon, May 1st through the 3rd in Orlando. I look forward to seeing you there. And with that being said, let's jump into my conversation with Nick from True Crime Garage, and we will be discussing some theories on who killed the Yogurt Shop 4. On this week's episode of Who Killed, it's part 2 of Who Killed the Yogurt Shop 4, and I am so lucky to be joined by Nick from True Crime Garage. He has been a guest on many of my shows before, and if you aren't familiar with his shows, all of his stuff is available on Stitcher. Thanks for joining me, Nick.
Thanks for having me once again, Bill. It's great to have another cup of coffee with you and talk some more true crime. And I was listening to last week's episode of Yogurt Shop, and that's what I call, that this case is referred to by several different names, but really Yogurt Shop is the most popular of the names. And Beverly Lowry even references that in her book, Who Killed These Girls? And it's always interesting to me where us, the public and society, where we come up with the names and how we name certain famous crimes. And this is one thing that you and I kind of touched upon when we talked about this briefly before, is that this is such a horrific crime. This is such a tragedy. This is such and it's also a black eye on for Texas as well. For Austin, for the city.
Yeah, and it's an artsy town. I mean, this isn't like
this is one of the most painful of memories.
Yeah.
And so I think that when we have these certain crimes, these basically a massacre, if you want to call it that, but we have, it reminds me of how we named Superbike and how we named the Lane Bryant shooting and Columbine and Newtown, and the list goes on and on and on. But what I think happens is, specifically when a horrible crime happens at a place of business or a school or a place that already carries its own name. Now, mind you, this place wasn't called Yogurt Shop. It's just referred to as Yogurt Shop. But one, it abbreviates the tragedy for us. And it also softens the delivery for me to you in even when you acknowledge, if I say, hey, did you hear they made an arrest regarding Yogurt Shop? You and I don't have to go through the horrific details. We don't have to name all 4 of the victims. We don't have to. It's kind of a way, I guess, to still be able to talk about it, but not have to relive it.
Yeah, I think that's very astute perspective, because that definitely, I mean, you think about all the major places. I mean, like we talked, I think, about the McDonald's massacre. You mentioned Newtown, Columbine. They just are those places because you're right. It softens the blow. It makes it easier to discuss, and it takes a tragedy. But I think it also helps keep that tragedy that much more in the public's consciousness, because it's got a shorthand name. Because, like John Bonet, we can say John Bonet. I mean, it's, who that is. There's only one John Bonet. So it's like, I mean, there may be a million of them in the world, but the one you think of is the one from the true crime world. So,
according to Steve Thomas's book, she was the only John Bonet. He says in the world, but maybe he means John Bonet Ramsey. But we don't need to get into. I think that's semantics at some point, right? But
yeah, that's a rabbit hole.
Yeah. But you had referenced Who Killed These Girls. I mentioned it already, and I'll tell you, I was thinking about this the other day, of like my top 20 favorite true crime books, or what I would tell others that like the genre must-reads, the top 20 must-reads. Who Killed These Girls by Beverly Lowry is a fantastic book. It's amazing. It's one of my favorite true crime books. It's a horrific crime to have to read about, but the way that she lays it out, the way that she pieces everything together it's just masterful. And she is absolutely brilliant. She's a wonderful author. I cannot recommend that book enough. There is another book that is pretty thorough as well, that has some information in it that Who Killed These Girls does not have, called Murdered Innocents, that's about Yogurt Shop as well. And this is by Corey Mitchell. I recommend both. The only issue with Corey Mitchell's book, and this is not to his fault, I mean, nobody could have predicted this. This case is so big, so complicated. It's been going on for almost 30 years, and it's had many twists and turns along the way. His book came out in 2005. And as you and I know, and anybody that knows this case, this was going through the case was going through some turns right around this time. And where I believe Mitchell probably thought they were releasing the whole story start to finish, we know that now not to be the case, because here we are, 2020. This took place 1991, and we're still looking for the killers.
It's one of those cases that, like you said, it's got the name Yogurt Shop. I think it was I Can't Believe It's Yogurt. And I think we had TCBY, which I've heard different references into what it actually stood for, but definitely during the yogurt fad of the 90s. And this was, so it would have been a super popular place. And I think for a city like Austin, who's so close with one another, as far as the community goes, it's very artsy. They have the film festival. They have the Austin City Limits. It's a community that is haunted now by this tragedy that really just kind of looms over the city.
Yeah. I mean, you have the tower shooter, Charles Whitman. And
that will probably always lead the way.
That will always be a memory. I think even to this day, no one can go up into the tower.
No kidding.
Yeah, they do allow some tours to go up there, but it's on very select days, and the security is still incredibly high on that, which it should be. I mean, it's weird because you do see people reenact. There's no reason to believe just because it happened once before that it'd never happen again, and it's so crazy. And then, like you said, Yogurt Shop is one of the most famous Texas cases. I mean, it's a huge case. It's been going on for 30 years. It's an incredibly complicated case as well. And that's also a bit of the tragedy, because I think that one problem that we have here, and one of the reasons why it remains unsolved, obviously, is because at one point they thought they solved this thing. At one point they went out and arrested 4 guys. They put 2 of them behind bars successfully.
Mm-hmm.
And we end up getting, and this is part of the story that I don't know that everybody knows, even people that may know this case well. Out of the 4 that they arrested, they technically ended up with 3 confessions. Now, this brings in a 5th person altogether. His last name was Davidson. And what was weird is we have a situation where Maurice Pierce in 1991 is picked up because he's got a .22 caliber gun. I believe it was a pistol that he's spotted with this. He's carrying it illegally. He's a minor at the time. And when he's picked up, he says something to the effect. Now, mind you, he's not picked up in question in regard to the Yogurt Shop murders that have already happened by this point. He's picked up just because he's a teenager illegally carrying a firearm. He says during the course of this whole operation that he had lent the gun to his buddy Forrest, and Forrest used it to, I believe his words were, to kill those girls. Now, what they end up doing is many years later, once the case has gone cold, they hand it over to cold case detectives. They're pouring through and tearing through the file, looking for anything that wasn't investigated or looked into completely. They're looking for loose ends. And when they're going through the file, what they find is this story of, hey, this kid is picked up carrying a firearm, and he says at the time one of his buddies used it to kill those girls. well, we need to investigate this, don't we? It could be in reference to Yogurt Shop. To try to bridge the gap a little bit here and not go through it too much, they eventually pick up Michael Scott. And Michael Scott is one of Maurice Pierce's friends. And during the course of questioning, it very quickly goes from an interview to an interrogation. And during the interrogation part, they start to convince Michael Scott that he probably knows more about this Yogurt Shop crime than he thinks that he does.
Good at that.
Yeah. Well, Polanco, I believe was his name. Either Polanca or Polanco was the detective that really steered this confession and really drug this confession out of him. And what's so crazy, too, is that this case, I think more so than any other, really mirrors the West Memphis 3 case. You know, for people not familiar with Yogurt Shop, they're probably familiar with the West Memphis 3 case. And why is it similar? Because we have multiple minors, underage people that are killed. Mm-hmm. And then later we're being told by law enforcement that they were killed by teenagers. We get a confession. You know, Jesse Miss Kelly confesses to killing those 3 boys. And then we have an arrest and then trials. And then later we're told, well, maybe the people that we convinced the public and that we put behind bars that and sent to death row, maybe they didn't actually do it. And now we're going to let them free. And it's such a weird case that the difference between the two, I guess, would be we have West Memphis 3, Jesse Miss Kelly, Jason Baldwin, and Damian Eccles, who they take the Alford plea so they can get out. Mm-hmm. But this situation, we had defense attorneys calling for a new trial, and that kind of forced the hand of the state of Texas to release Robert Springsteen and Michael Scott, the 2 that were convicted. And actually, Robert Springsteen was on death row. The Texas was going to kill him eventually for the Yogurt Shop murders.
Yeah, it's very similar to what Damien was going through and being the only one that actually was put on death row. And yeah, there is a lot of parallels between their case and this case. And I mean, not as much as they're all tragic in their own way. And I think we've talked about it before, where it's like you still have people that aren't 100% convinced that Damien and the boys didn't have something to do with killing the West Memphis 3.
I think there's always going to be people that are suspicious of Damian Eccles, Jason Baldwin, and Jesse Miss Kelly because, and this is something we touched upon on True Crime Garage a few times, there's also reason to be, I think, suspicious of maybe just Damien by himself or 2 of the 3. We don't need to get into that. But I think the difference there is in Yogurt Shop, we pretty much have definitive proof that these 4 guys, the 4 that were arrested, Forrest, I can never think of his last name.
Wilborn,
Maurice Pierce, Michael Scott, and Robert Springsteen. There is scientific evidence to suggest that they did not do this, that they did not kill the 4 girls at the Yogurt Shop. Where with the West Memphis 3, there's always going to be suspicion against those 3 guys because we don't have that scientific proof. And we also have these guys that, some people are going to look at the Alford plea is exactly what it is, an admission of guilt. Per the state of Arkansas, that's what it is. Right. You know, they're confessing to their guilt. And then that case technically, as far as the state of Arkansas is concerned, is closed. Now, Yogurt Shop is open, and it is heating up once again. This is a case that's gone cold, warmed up, gone cold, stick it in the microwave, warm it up a little bit again. It's a case that, and thankfully so, it's never really left the spotlight of Austin. It's never really left the hearts and minds of the investigators and law enforcement in that area.
Yeah,
that's also created some of its own problems as well. And I think that is why we have the problem with the four boys who eventually, as men, are arrested for the yogurt shop crimes.
Yeah, I definitely think that there is an issue with, anytime you have interrogations where that involve kids or teenagers, or I just think there's just so many. You walk away with so many questions.
Well, now mind you, Michael Scott was a man. He was a grown ass man by the time that they sat him down. And
well,
I think
this is true, but
I think the problem becomes with Yogurt Shop is that you have 3 confessions. West Memphis 3, you only have Jesse Misskelley. And anybody that's watched that interview with Jesse Misskelley, you can see and you can understand how they're piecing together and how they're getting him to create this story that goes along with the facts of the case. You can see that happening. Now, it does happen with Michael Scott as well, but the big, huge difference here is we have 2 other people that Polanka talks to that corroborate his story. So now we have 3 confessors all kind of saying the same story.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what, for us, the public, it gets hard for us to get over that. We can get over the mountain of one person confessed to something. You and I would never, we like to believe that we would never confess to something that we did not do.
Right.
But it does happen. We know that it happens. But then the real mountain that gets difficult to get over mentally is 3 people confessed. And what do I mean by that? Michael Scott confessed that basically his confession was that he and his friends, these 3 other guys, were there, that they went into the yogurt shop with the motive to rob the place. They sexually assaulted the girls, killed them, and set the place on fire. And eventually Robert Springsteen agrees to this. They start pushing and pounding Michael Scott's story into Springsteen's head. And eventually he caves and says, yeah, I was in there and, I shot one of the girls. I killed Amy Ayers. I raped Amy Ayers. And then the third confession we get is not from Maurice Pierce. It's not from Forrest. It's from this guy named Davidson, who apparently part of Michael Scott's story doesn't end just with Yogurt Shop. His confession goes on to include that at some point in 1992, Scott is smoking a bunch of pot, which, I mean, he was before Yogurt Shop anyway, but he's still smoking a bunch of pot. And he says that he got all paranoid about being discovered, right? About these crimes, these horrific crimes that he and his buddies committed. He's getting paranoid because he hid the gun. He hid one of the guns. And he hid it, I guess, like in a bed of rocks or something at a creek.
Yeah, I think it was like underneath like a, I don't know, like a big old rock that they, it's Texas. So they had a place to hide something.
Well, and the crazy thing though too is his, he says that he put a marker, that he put a marker so that if he ever needed to find the gun again, he would be able to find it. He marked it somehow. So he goes back and he finds the gun. He's getting paranoid. Now he's going to give it to his buddy Davidson. I think he might have been living with this guy at the time. And he puts it in a bag and he tells him, could you dispose of this? Don't look inside the bag. Just dispose of this. And Davidson tells investigators, yes, Michael Scott at some point in 1992 gave me a bag. I didn't look inside of it, but I believed there to be a gun inside, and I trashed this thing for him as he requested.
And this was pre-OJ, man. This was pre-Kardashian.
Well, and therein lies the horrible problem for us as spectators sitting out on the sidelines. We go, okay, now we got 3 confessions, and then on top of that, these are detailed confessions. it gets very hard to, you can understand, I can understand, and I can see how police can pull a false confession out of somebody. But to be honest with you, Bill, most of the false confessions that I've reviewed, and of course I haven't seen them all, but a lot of them are rather vague. This is not that. This is detailed confessions. Now, what Austin PD ends up doing ultimately, and they didn't pull like a making a murder or anything like that. We don't have any situation, and who knows what really happened there. We'll figure that out someday. But I don't want anybody to get the wrong opinion, wrong view that they were planting evidence or anything like that. They just took what evidence they had and purposely left some of it out because it didn't fit Michael Scott's confession. And some of that evidence that was left out once this baby went to trial, now mind you, it went to 2 trials, but one of the pieces that they leave out is that we have eyewitnesses that claim to have seen suspicious people, they claim to have seen suspicious vehicles, and claim to have seen suspicious acts all at times, and none of these descriptions match Michael Scott and his buddies, his goons, batch of goons that he's running around with, and none of it matches the vehicle that they were driving or believed to be driving that night. So it's awfully convenient to just leave those pieces out, and that's part of where we end up getting into trouble here with this case. This is part of the reason why ultimately Michael Scott is eventually let go and Robert Springsteen is eventually let go.
Well, Pierce and Wellborn never even went to trial. I mean, there wasn't, they went without a trial because there was no evidence that connected them.
I believe Pierce actually sat in jail for a long time while they were trying to build a case against him. But I think what they
as
thought,
one goes,
yeah. I think it was a good 2 years he might have sat in there, a year and a half, something crazy like that. And I think that they just thought that eventually Forrest will confess, eventually Maurice will confess, and those two did not. They never confessed, and they couldn't build. The big problem, too, they had was they couldn't build a case against Forrest. There just was no case against him. And actually, I want to say that...
I'm Ken Harbaugh, host of...
it's not 100% wrong in my mind if they thought they were doing the right thing at the time. Now, the problem though too, Bill, is Polanco, this detective,
Polanco standard.
He could have. Well, he was using the Reed technique, something that they called the Reed technique, which is outdated now. But and I believe they were using the Reed technique for the West Memphis Three as well. But anyway,
they use it for a lot of different cases.
This Polanco guy, he was brilliant in the sense that he could get people to confess to crimes. That was his thing. He was like the closer, man. But the problem is, he was so good at it, he could get people that didn't do the crime to confess to it. And therein lies the problem. You have to wonder, are there other people that this guy put behind bars that are still sitting there that confess to something that they didn't do?
Are you saying that somebody could have possibly convinced somebody that they did something and they got prosecuted for it and they're sitting in prison or innocent?
Well, if we are to believe Michael Scott, Robert Springsteen, Maurice Pierce, and Forrest, if we're to believe these four guys, then Polanco got 3 people to confess to things that didn't happen.
Yeah, that's insane.
Manufacture memories that are not there.
I mean, it's like he's like a Svengali or something that's able to like put the memories within your brain, or like he's part of the Matrix, and
well, in detailed confessions.
That's what I'm saying. It's like, how is he getting that information? Because it turns out that the information is false, or
yeah, but with this Reed technique, what you see them do, and you see them do it with Jesse Miss Kelly, and you see it 100% with Michael Scott as well.
Lie about what they have.
Well, they don't lie. What they do is they go, okay, Bill, when you took the girls back into the storage room, you tied them up, didn't you? Well, you say yes. Maybe you didn't know that they were tied up until I just I'm leading you with that question. You tied them up, didn't you? Yes. What did you tie them up with, Bill? I don't know. You're saying I don't know because you didn't tie them up. You don't know that they were tied up. You didn't know till just now that they were tied up.
Right.
And you go, and then you start going, you see this with Michael Scott. They go, it was something white, remember? Close your eyes and visually see you tying up the girls so you can remember what it was that you used to tie them up. And Michael Scott says, extension cord? And they go, no, that's not what you used. Try harder, Bill. Try harder. Remember better.
Remember better.
Remember better. Try harder. And then Michael Scott actually says napkins. Napkins. Because he's trying to think of anything white. He's in the hot seat. He just wants out of the seat. That's how that Reed technique works, is that once you get them to start confessing, what they do to kind of scientifically explain this to people and how it works and why that it does work, is at some point you can manipulate the person to where they feel that they're helping you and you are bullying them, and they feel that the way to get you to stop bullying them is to help you by giving you the answers that you want. And even if it's wrong, I'll tell you what you want because I just want this to be over with. And the only way you're allowing this to be over with is if I continue to help you. Now, why would they continue to lie? Because they're weak. And then at some point they believe that this will all get straightened out. I will tell them what they want to hear now, so this will be over with. But it'll all get straightened out once they hook me up to a polygraph and the polygraph tells them that I'm lying. It'll all get straightened out once they see that the evidence doesn't match my story. And then this will all be over with. Then what the problem is that polygraphs nobody uses those at trial.
They're not allowed.
And the other thing, too, is so the police hook him up to a polygraph. If he fails because he's lying about the story, then they just toss it out and go,
whatever.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, like, that's the thing about the whole polygraph aspect of any case is, yeah, it's good to clear your name to an extent, but again, it's only going to do yourself a disservice if it is quote unquote, I mean, they don't have to tell you even if you passed or failed, or, I mean, they can say whatever the hell they want to say. It is just part of being interrogated by the police. I just don't understand why they use that tech. I mean, I know why they use that technique, but the fact that they can use that technique and it's not admissible in court, there's a little disconnect there. Like, oh, this is good enough for our interrogations, but it's not good enough for our juries to decide if it's good enough. Like, it's like, come on, man.
Well, and then on the flip side of that, when you have investigators putting too much weight, too much gravity into a polygraph, well, then you have other cases where they've probably cleared the perpetrator because they believed the polygraph results, because they believed that he was not lying to them. And there's a good batch of psychopaths out there that can kill somebody one day and lie about it the next, and you not be able to hook them up to a machine that's going to tell you, this guy's, he ain't telling you the truth. Because they don't react the same way that we do. They don't feel the same way that we feel.
Exactly. Those tests are designed, they're going to be tested in a lab with people that are not considered psychopaths. And so basically you don't have that. I'm trying to think.
And the machine doesn't score the test either. You have dummies like me and you that are sitting there going, all right, I put a score to it.
Oh, this looks like a lie to me. Well, here we go. We'll give you a 7 out of 10. It's a C. You guys, I don't know. It's kind of questionable.
So should we talk about, there are a couple things that jump off the page regarding Scott's confession that are not correct.
Yeah, but I know you got to go today real quick. So, if we want to wrap it up for, and then we can finish it up in, a second episode, that'd be awesome. I mean, do you have, another day that we could talk about it? Because I know you got to run.
Yeah, that would be good. I tell you, in the meantime, you give your listeners some homework, and I think to really discuss this case and to really get into it and to have a full understanding of why the confessions don't work and why and how this crime probably went down. And there was a lot of crimes that went down that night, unfortunately. But the best way to understand that is to find a diagram of the layout of the yogurt shop, of this tiny little yogurt shop, and to visually see the layout of everything will give everybody a very good understanding and very good knowledge of these crimes.
Yeah, and I think we'll talk about that definitely in part 2. So, Nick, I know you got to run, so I appreciate it so much again, and thanks so much.
Always good to talk to you, Bill.
Thanks again. Thank you again to Nick from the True Crime Garage podcast for making plenty of time for me this week to discuss the yogurt shop murders. He is always a great resource, and he really does know his stuff. All of his past shows can be found on Stitcher Radio backlogs of every single episode they've ever done, including episodes on the yogurt shop murders, which are episode 81 and 82. And thank you guys again for tuning in to another episode of Who Killed. I will be dropping new episodes every Friday, wherever you get your favorite podcasts. And for the second year in a row, I will be representing Who Killed, My Passion Case, and Who Killed Amy Mahalovic on Podcast Row at CrimeCon 2020 in Orlando. If you guys are looking to save, you guys can use my promo code AMY2020 to save on your ticket price. If you have never been, it really is a bucket list item for any true crime fan. If you guys do enjoy this podcast, you can help support the show by clicking on the donate button on the left-hand side of my website, slowburnmedia.com. That is slow minus the W. Or via the Venmo app with my username @Bill-Huffman-3. I will also provide a link in the show notes. Any amount is appreciated, and it really does help keep this podcast running. If you do enjoy what you hear, you can also leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you are listening now. It really does help keep these important cases that I cover in the spotlight, especially anything that is unsolved. I will be dropping new cases of my other series, My Passion Case, every Monday. And if you'd like to stay up to date on the cases I have covered, as well as the new shows that I have coming down the pipeline, please follow me on Twitter at BillHuffman3. Thank you guys again so much for listening, and until next time, be safe. Now let's take a listen to Michael Scott's interrogation and see if you can find anything that stands out to you as being a little bit on the shady side.
You want the truth, and you know what the truth is. You're having trouble with the memories or flashbacks. You know what happened. You're scared to tell us. I don't blame you. It's a horrible thing what you saw in there.
Look, can I tell you what I keep seeing in my head?
Tell us what you see in your head.
I keep seeing these girls get shot.
Right. Tell us what that looks like. Tell us what you see specifically. How they're getting shot and who's shooting them. Come on, Mike, we're doing good. Tell us. Let's do this today. Let's do it.
Seeing girls, I remember seeing them down. I remember one girl screaming, terrified.
Okay.
I don't know if this is real or not, or if this is...
Michael, it's real. It's okay. You can present it to us any way you want, but it's real. Mike, look at me. You're remembering what happened because you were inside there, right? You're remembering what happened.
I don't honestly remember going in the building.
If you were in the building, you went in there with them. I don't believe that, Michael. You do remember going in there. And you know you were in there. Did you shoot any of those girls?
No, sir.
Then tell us what happened. What did those two boys do to those girls? You want to live with this the rest of your life?
No, I don't.
Then get it out right now. They're you over. They're the ones that shot the girls. Do it. What did you see happen?
At some point where he's handed that revolver, what does he say to you? Either shoot him or you're next. That's what he said. Because I didn't want to do it. Right. Either shoot him or you're next. What do you remember hearing then? I remember looking at this girl. I cry. I hear Robert saying, "Do it, do it." I hear the gun go off. I only pulled the trigger once. I turn around. Here's your stupid gun.
What happens next, Mike? That brought back some memories, didn't it?
I remember looking at the gun.
You ever seen that gun before?
I'm not positive.
Does that look like a gun you've seen before?
It looks like a gun I've seen before, but I'm not positive.
Is that the gun you shot somebody with, Mike?
I don't.
Is that the gun you walked up behind somebody with and shot in the head? Is that the one? Talk to me, Mike.
Yes, sir.
You did that, didn't you?
Yes, sir.
We've just opened some more doors, haven't we, Mike?
Not really.
You sure?
Yes, sir.
Now we'll take a listen to Robert Springsteen's interrogation, and you make the decision on whether or not you feel like he's been fed information or is he actually telling the truth.
The problem is, we got to get
what are our options? I
options
cannot
are,
give you any more truth than I've already given. Where do we go from here?
why can't you? Because you're going to dig yourself into that thing? Well, you're already there. You've already dug the hole. The hole's there.
Oh, then I'm in it. I don't know. That's what I keep telling you guys. I mean, my God, this was 7 years ago.
But this is one of the most significant things that ever happened in your life.
That's what I keep trying to explain to you. If I was there and I partook in this, I would remember these things.
And you do remember these things.
No, I don't. No, I do not.
You're the coldest guy I've ever talked to in my life. Are you a cold-blooded murderer?
No, sir, I'm not.
I think you are. I think Maurice is absolutely true about you.
Well, then
you're the coldest guy I've ever talked to.
Pardon me? Then let's take whatever actions we need to take. If that's what you believe, and that's where you think this case needs to go, then let's go there.
We don't want to go there.
But I'm doing everything I can and have exceeded my limits of helping you guys. Where do we go now?
What did Maurice make you do with that 380? Huh? What did he tell you to do? If that's right, or what's going to happen? Oh, what did you do? What did you do? Which one? Okay, where? Where did he make you shoot? Wow. Where? In order to But you already down? You already still up? Why not? You're dead. Cancer. What else? What else is there? Yeah, you're there. You're there. Absolutely. You are there. What else is there? You weren't there, right? Hello? Yes, you do. You know how to just say it. That's my generation.
Thank you guys again for listening this week. I look forward to catching up with you next week for another episode of Who Killed? And you never know what case I'll be covering. But again, until next time, I hope everybody is safe and sound. Take care.
I'm Ken Harbaugh, host of Burn the Boats from Evergreen podcasts. I interview political leaders and influencers, folks like award-winning journalist Soledad O'Brien and conservative columnist Bill Kristol about the choices they confront when failure is not an option. I won't agree with everyone I talk to, but I respect anyone who believes in something enough to risk everything for it. Because history belongs to those willing to burn the boats. Episodes are out every other week wherever you get your podcasts.
Women's Running Stories, where we explore the intersection between running and life. Because every woman who is committed to a running journey has a story to tell, and this is where you'll find those stories. I am host and producer Cherie Louise Turner. I'm a 53-year-old runner, and together with original music by musician and runner Cormac O'Regan, we bring these inspirational stories to life. Please join us to fuel your adventures.